All right, live. What do you think of the new angle, by the way? We've got the, I used the old cam. All right, I used the old iPhone and cam last time, and obviously there was a few slight issues. Not anything, iPhones being iPhones more so. So I hope you like the new angle. Now, we had the Day of Reckoning, is what they called it. The Day of Reckoning is the name of this card. We had the press conference today. We had the fights announced, of which me and Outmatch are going to talk about. We have Joshua changing trainer. We've literally had news left, right, and centre the last few days. There's been plenty of stuff to talk about. I needed a guest, a good guest, to come and chat over this with me. And I think I haven't just got a guest. I've got a very, very A-star guest, Boxing Brotherhood member, Outmatch Boxing. You're no stranger to the channel, but for those who don't know, do you want to introduce yourself? Nice long intro, by the way. Yes, you're welcome. 1 minute, all dedicated to you.
Yeah, I've got to say, what an intro that was. Yeah, in case you guys haven't seen my channel, haven't heard me before, as G-Man said, I'm one of the Boxing Brotherhood. I just talk about boxing, give my opinion. I like to focus on some of the more peripheral aspects of psychology, technique, tactics, biomechanics, strength and conditioning, as that is my trade. So yeah, definitely a mixed bag on my channel, but I think there's definitely something that everyone can enjoy. Just try keep it real, keep it objective, and say what I see.
I left the link to Outmatch's channel there at the very, very top. It's pinned in the chat. So you are a few subs off 2,000 subscribers. I know that feeling of wanting to get there. So by the end of this stream, let's hope that Outmatch is at 2,000. If you haven't already, please do. Got 49 already, 50 in the building. So, mate, I want your thoughts on this whole card. But before we talk about the press conference, I just want to read here the fights that, as of today, have been announced. And when I look at this card, and bear in mind, this is not going to be, for the most part, in the order they'll more than likely be on the card, right? For the most part. But I look at this, and yeah, there are some fights that, you know, I'm looking at thinking they are mismatches, it's fair to say. But I can't believe I'm seeing all these names on one card. I'm just going to read them all here for you. Arslanbek Makhmudov versus Ajay Kabayel. Filip Hrgovic versus Mark Mori. Frank Sanchez versus Junior Fa. Opetaia versus Elsoro. Dimitri Bivol versus Lyndon Arthur. Daniel DuBois, Jarrell Miller. Deontay Wilder versus Joseph Parker. And Anthony Joshua versus Otto Wallin. Have you ever listed those type of names and thought you'd see maybe not even two of them on the same card, but all of them?
No, I got to say, I think, as I said to you just now off stream, it's a little bit surreal because, as you say, you see all these names on one card. You see the table at the press conference. You're just thinking, damn, like, surely this is going to be very expensive for people to get their purses paid. But yeah, I mean, there are a couple of fights on here that realistically you could see them being a main event in their own right, you know?
I mean, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. If it was standalone, Daniel DuBois versus Jarrell Miller, and say that was, at the very least, that would headline probably the OVO on a Queensbury show. Maybe Warren would try and do a pay-per-view. Yeah. But that would be a standalone main event, no questions asked, wouldn't it? And it's probably going to be...
I agree.
It's not even co-main event on this card.
Yeah.
That's like, crazy.
You could see that on a Saturday night TNT Sports card. Maybe, as you say, Frank would try and squeeze it onto pay-per-view, but, you know, that's what it would be, you know, especially after Dubois fought Usyk. It maybe be his first challenge in his comeback, you know.
I'm reading that card there, and there are some fights that kind of you look at and think, why exactly, like Hrgovic to Mori, right? Not to sound negative, right? But I actually had a little chat with Hatman in the Element group about this, and you know, he was right in one sense, in which he said, you know, you're a mandatory challenger, right? You're not expected to fight the best one after the other. Joe Joyce showed why you shouldn't, and I get that, and I'm definitely singing off that same hymn sheet to an extent. But surely there is a level so low, you have to kind of say, now, come on. Because I would confidently put Moses Atelma in with Mark Mori. And I'd look at that and think, is that not maybe a bit too soft to touch? Filip Hrgovic is on the cusp of a world title fight. Should he really be fighting a 41-year-old Mori?
Yeah, that is, you know, as you say, playing devil's advocate, being objective. That's not a great matchup. It's not even acceptable, really. I don't think, especially when you consider that it was Bacoli who was being spoken about initially.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's a big downgrade. And then it's not even like Dumori's a tough journeyman. He's a scrub, no disrespect, but he is.
He was terrified of an injury-ridden, shot to bits David Haye.
Yeah, exactly.
Nearly
Tony Bellew
7
fought
years
that
ago.
same David Haye.
Exactly.
And
that was
you saw what happened.
January 2016. It's nearly January 2024.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously. So, that is one fight that I'm looking at, like, really, that the best you could do. Like, Filip Hrgovic against Kubrat Pulev. He's not dangerous, but, at least, okay, look, he's someone who's, he's been there, seen it, done it. I'd be okay with that. But Demar, really, like, again, I would expect Moses Atelma to be fighting him, not Filip Hrgovic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised they didn't do that. I'm surprised they didn't have Atelma on the card fighting Dumori and maybe shuffling
around. He's out
around
on December 1st, though, so maybe that's why they just decided to get him out early.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine he might be kicking himself, though. Maybe Frank is as well, putting him in that fight, having it scheduled when this has just popped up,
He did say that, going by the press conference, it was all done very quick. Like, Frank Warren said it was really Monday evening when they all kind of had the words on it, and it was all done then and there. So I'm assuming it was a case of, this is it, make your move. And by then it was like, well, this is a bit too late. That's one of the fights on there where, look, the name of Filip Hrgovic, he's a good fighter, but, that fight is not really compelling. Jay Opetaia, a fighter who I really enjoy and I really rate, I know you quite like him as well, against Elsoro. Now, for those who don't know, he is a Queensbury fighter. I might have seen him before this, but my first time really watching him was against Dex Spellman. I think this was either this year or late last year. The Dex Spellman is an English level, light heavyweight really, who's been battered from pillar to post every single time he stepped up to even British level. And Elizara went life and death with him. I was hurt a few times in that fight. He's in with Jay Opetaia.
Yeah. I haven't seen that much of Zora. I've seen a few highlights, and I think, there really are levels. Like, I think Jay Opetaia is the top tier at cruiserweight.
Is it a step up or step down from Jordan Thompson, his last fight? Because you would expect him to step up the levels from a fight like that. He didn't even look happy that he was in a fight that easy almost. It looked like he was like, is this the best you got? He's essentially, you could argue, same level or possibly a step down. Yeah,
I wouldn't say it's any higher than Jordan Thompson, personally.
No. I think Isaac Chamberlain would make light work of both those guys, Zora and what was his name, Jordan Thompson.
I think, that being said, I was intrigued in the lead up to the Thompson fight, purely just from a stylistic perspective, just because I wanted to see, or not just with Opetaia, but I like to see fighters take on like a range of different styles, like guys of different shapes, dimensions. And even though Thompson was like levels below, I was just going to be on a little bit of a scouting mission just to see how Opetaia would deal with someone who's quite a bit bigger than him.
I won't tell you on here, right? I'll tell you off air, right? Because it's more an off air type of thing. How confident Matchroom were in Jordan Thompson winning that fight. And not very. I'll tell you off air about that. Just not very, right? But they're the two kind of fights that I'm kind of looking at, like, really. I suppose Lyndon Arthur against Bivol as well. I don't know about you, but when they said Richard Rivera, I thought, okay, he's a limited fighter. He lost the Badu Jack, close fight, but he lost it. That was a cruiserweight. So at the very least, he's going to have a size advantage over Bivol. With Lyndon Arthur, it's just like, well, he has nothing. Like, this is a guy in his last fight against the Argentinian fighter was hurt a couple of times, and he went really life and death with him. He again, not even the same stratosphere.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, you talk about the size advantage. I think most of the guys that Bivol's been in with have a size advantage over him, but he deals with them. He gets them in their box and even hurts a lot of them.
I think he's going to stop Lyndon Arthur. He hasn't had a stoppage since Sullivan Barrera in 2018. This will be his first. I think.
Yeah, I reckon so. I don't think it will be straightforward, but I see Bivol probably getting to him maybe later in the fight.
He might have a look early on. Arthur might use his jab, but I expect a fairly run-of-the-mill Bivol routine fight, to be honest with you. A fight that did kind of come a bit out of the flank was Hrgovic Makhmudov versus Ajay Kabayel, who beat Derek Chisora 6 years ago. And, I mean, he's literally been in the wilderness since then.
Yeah, holding the EBU hostage, essentially.
Fighting once a year.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was 2017. It's not like he could even use the excuse, well, it wasn't at it now in 2020 and 2021. You fought him in 2017.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't it. It was like the end of 2017. Show. Yeah,
November 2017. It was a horrible fight.
Yeah. Oh, that was dreadful.
Bivol won his world title on that card.
Yeah, one punch.
One punch.
Broadhurst.
Backhurst or something, how you pronounce it. Trent Backhurst or something, I think his name was. Maybe he was Australian. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a great knockout.
That was a brilliant knockout. We haven't seen one like that since from Bivol.
No, that was the thing with Bivol. I was always waiting. I was like, okay, when's he going to show that kind of power again? So I think it was a little bit.
I think it's there. He just hasn't needed to show it.
Yeah, maybe, to be fair, because he fights in a fairly high volume or relatively high volume. So maybe he doesn't get to sit down on his shots as much as he did in that fight, because that really was just like a, sit down right hand, boom.
It was brilliant.
Yeah.
It made that show. I expect Makhmudov to take the head of Kabayel clean off his shoulders. What do you think?
I think so as well, and I hope so, because, just I no disrespect to Kabayel, but there are certain characters in the heavyweight division who they're like bad smells. They're just hanging around, and they always seem to be spoken about in terms of getting fights.
They live off one performance or one fight, which to me, I would hate to be that type of fighter or that person to live off one achievement or one thing. It's like, I like Jack Catterall. He's a very good fighter, but he can't go into a fight without, I got robbed against Josh Taylor, and his whole team says, mate, the world's moved on. Please move on. Focus on the job at hand. You don't want to be known. Out of a lean to a lesser extent. I cut Tyson Fury. 4 years ago. Well done. What have you done since then? Nothing. Okay, shut up.
Yeah.
You don't want to be known as one of them guys.
Exactly. My stance on Otto Wallin as well, because he has been milking that whole. And don't get me wrong, he put up a good effort against Tyson Fury, but
he still lost.
He still lost, and more so with Kabayel. You beat Chisora. Who doesn't beat Chisora these days?
He's lost 13 times. Am I right?
Exactly.
13.
And your claim to fame is beating Chisora. That's not good form, I'm afraid.
Beating Chisora and then doing nothing with it.
Yeah.
Literally. So you set yourself up, and then you just kind of said, okay, now what? Well, now you do something else. It doesn't work like that. I'm going to sit on this win for 6 years. Yeah. So we have that fight. Now we get into the sharp end. And I want to bring in the press conference with this next fight, because me and you both watched it. I watched it live. I would have loved to have been at it. Obviously, I'm in a different country, so it wasn't possible. But who knows? Next year, definitely. Daniel DuBois versus Jarrell Miller. Before we go into the fight, did you see their interaction at the press conference?
Yeah, between DuBois and Miller, I did, yeah.
I'm not going to quote Jarrell Miller directly, because it was quite colourful. We don't want to upset any algorithms. But he basically said, once a quitter, always a quitter, in a lot more colourful way. But that's essentially what he said. He said he was going to beat up Daniel Dubois, etc. And I did laugh out loud when Dev said, that's what he said he's going to do. What do you think, Daniel? I'm looking forward to it. I was like, mate, of all the things to say, he said he's going to do this and do this. I'm looking forward to it. Don't be. Don't be looking forward to that, mate.
Yeah. You know what? As much of a scumbag cheat as Miller is,
he is entertaining.
Yeah, like he talks the talk. Like he's got that proper old school late 90s WWF kind of trash talk.
He fit right in.
Yeah, exactly. Like even his appearance, he's always got the sunglasses on, he's fat as a house. He fits right in, as you say. But then
he does.
Poor Dubois, like bless him.
I just felt lamb to the slaughter. It's like that's the worst person you could ever get. He's going to trash talk the crap out of Dubois, and Dubois is just like that.
Yeah.
Like a deer in the headlights.
And I'm just like, just give him the silent treatment. Don't open your mouth because you're just going to make it so much worse for yourself.
Yeah. And he's, in one sense, Miller didn't focus his entire attention on Dubois. Now, you got to say Dev Sani kind of contributed in that, and shout out to Dev. We've had him on here a few times. He watches my videos. Shout out to him. But he had to mention the two top of the bill heavyweights, Joshua and Wilder. Yeah. And Miller doesn't like either of them. He said that, but he specifically targeted Joshua. What did you make of that?
I wasn't really that surprised, in all honesty, because
no, I was waiting for it myself, but I wanted to see Joshua's reaction.
And I think it's for a couple of reasons. Obviously, he has, I want to say, more of a history with Joshua in the sense where he was actually supposed to fight him, but also as well, there's that story that came out a few years ago about how Wilder concussed Miller in sparring, and so it kind of makes sense that Miller's a bit more favourable towards Wilder. Like says, "Oh yeah, still don't like him, but he's going to beat you." It's, as I say, it's kind of like to be expected, really. He has that bit of, I don't want to say respect for Wilder, but I think he's kind of more like, all right, you've done your bit, but you've done nothing. I love the way like Joshua did bite, but for me, now you could say I'm reading too much into this. You could say whatever. His whole demeanor just seemed to switch Joshua's after that altercation with Miller. Yeah, and Miller, like Joshua said, like, oh, I'll go over there and do this, but Miller is so loud, such an abrasive character. He echoed Joshua out completely with his voice. And honestly, like, for me, it was like Joshua's whole demeanor changed after that, like to the point where when Dev Sani asked him a question, just straight away, you don't ask me, Eddie Hearn asked me. Yeah. That was cringe. I thought that was a bit cringe. You know what? I think I want to say that Joshua was probably anticipating it. He probably saw this guy's going to be here. He's going to be at the press conference. He's going to say something. And see, I actually saw the face-off because they did the channels, they do like individual videos for the face-off. I saw Joshua's face-off with Wallin, and Joshua had that kind of look on his face, and I'm thinking, I need to go and watch the full press conference now. And yeah, I think Miller is just one of those guys who really knows how to get under Joshua's skin. He definitely does. Yeah. I think with Joshua, if it comes into kind of a shouting match and it's kind of like, oh, you're this, you're that, but he was making references to Eddie Hearn and stuff like that. And Miller is so loud and he has that just abrasive attitude that he can keep going and going and going and going. And I think with Joshua, he's thinking he'll say something, then he'll stop. I get a word in where it's like, oh, he's not stopping. I'm going to have to try and talk over him. And he's so loud, I'm not able to talk over him. It was just kind of like that. It was what I expected, but I was thinking, damn, Miller is going hard on him there. Yeah. And to be fair, like saying that Miller's entertaining and stuff, it is ironic how, he's criticizing Daniel Dubois for being a quitter, but this guy was juiced up to the gills many times on numerous occasions. Like you're not that brave yourself, really. But I know what he's doing. Like Miller, that's who he is. Like, and he kind of embraces it, really.
Oh yeah, that's the funny thing. Like, he is the sort of person who's shown no remorse for those failed tests,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And now it's like, I am what I am, and I'm gonna just embrace. It's like he always knew he was the bad guy, but
Mm,
he put now. How do I say it? He portrayed himself as the bad guy, and then it came out that he really is genuinely just a bad scumbag. And he's like, well, that's what they say I am. That's what I am. So that's what I'm going to be. And
yeah.
he's just happy to take that. He's embracing it. And the thing is about Miller is that that's someone who you really, in one sense, you should say he should be just, if he is boxing, just put him off small cards and just get him off the big stage. But because he's such a loud character, in one sense, promoters do still want him. Like, hence the reason why he's on this show, because promoters are like, he is going to sell. He is going to start rows with everyone on this card. He's going to be the one who everyone's going to have videos on YouTube. They're going to have videos on Twitter and stuff like that. He's going to put so many eyes on this card because he's just going to be mounting off to everyone and being a scumbag.
Yeah, exactly. Like, money talks ultimately, whether you
Yeah.
like it or not. And like, that's what it comes down to. But that aside, like, you can't deny that it looks like DuBois and Miller shape up to be a good fight. Like, whichever way you cut it.
Before I ask you this next question, 180 in the building. If you haven't already, hit the like button. And if you haven't already, there's 180. So there's bound to be at least a couple who haven't gone over to Outmatch Boxing. So please go over to Outmatch and give them a subscribe. Oh, you're on 2K now. Boom. We got you up to 2K.
Thank you.
Boom. So 2K. Let's keep it going. You know, just because you hit 2K doesn't mean you have to stop there. But I gotta ask, right? I think this fight is intriguing. DuBois versus Miller, right?
Yeah.
I can imagine there's going to be serious testing involved for him specifically.
Mm-hmm.
If he has a fifth of what he had, say, 2019, pre-Joshua, I'm taking him in this fight. Who are you got? Who do you have?
Well, there are a lot of ifs. I'll say that.
Ifs.
I 100% agree. They'd really be foolish to not be testing this guy up to the wazoo, you know? Like, it's...
I wonder how stringent it is over there, though.
Yeah, that's
the
obviously,
thing.
The $1 million question.
Because he fought Lucas Brown in Abu Dhabi, which is in that region. And judging by that card, I can imagine they didn't probably do anything. Would it be the most stringent over there? That's a good question. If a tree is known by its fruits, mate.
Exactly. Yeah. Time will tell. Ultimately, like, there's 5 weeks left. If we're seeing Jarrell Miller get pulled out, then I wouldn't say it was a surprise.
Would it shock you? I was going to say no. It wouldn't shock you.
Absolutely not. No.
It just amazes me, going off Miller again, that like this is someone, again, after all that, like 3 failed tests over in different sports for not just small things, stuff that you have to self-inject, for God's sake.
Yeah,
And
serious.
he's still just like, the guy just could give less of a you know what, and just, you know, still laughs it off, plays the villain. It honestly, like, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it is quite extraordinary. You know, the fact that he can be so kind of brazen as well, and you kind of think, like, are you dumb to do it again, or are you just that insidious a person that you really don't care? But maybe it's a bit of both, to be honest.
Maybe he just thinks he can get away with it.
Yeah, well, you could make the argument that he has, because he's arguably on the biggest card in recent years, despite all of his controversy.
It is crazy to think, right? This is a guy who squandered a Joshua fight, squandered a top rank deal, served nearly 3 years out of the ring, and within a year, he's fighting on one of the biggest cards of the last 20, 25 years.
Yeah, it's insane.
It actually is insane to think about when you say it like that, isn't it? Really, when you actually stop and think, damn, how did he do that?
Yeah.
I guess just keeping the O and, you know, having a big mouth will get you places, regardless how talented you are.
Yeah. I mean, that obviously goes a long way, but even it's always difficult to say with guys who get popped, because, like, I was really quite high on Miller. in 2017,
So
2018.
was
I thought he just looked like a real unique challenge for a lot of the top heavyweights. A massive guy, great engine, good technique as well. Like, he wasn't just a juggernaut. He was someone who he had a decent amount of boxing skill. It was quite situational in the sense where he was usually trying to cut down the distance, but when he got into range, the shot selection and, as I
very
say, the
good.
work rate was really quite impressive. And now, obviously, a certain amount of that is
Oh yeah.
pharmacologically enhanced. But as I got to say, like, if the technique is still there and he has, some decent work rate, DuBois, he's not the hardest guy to find, and
Nope.
he's got strengths of his own, but that can be a real interesting stylistic matchup, I feel.
I just think that, like, yeah, Joe Joyce beat him on the jab. It wasn't really, but still, like, Joe Joyce was the stronger of the two.
Yeah.
And it was weird that DuBois, who he up until that point, his whole kind of career was he overpowered guys, and he was getting overpowered. If he thought Joe Joyce was strong, that's nothing compared to what he's going to be in there with against the 300+ pound man with stamina.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
It has bad news written all over him.
I was never surprised when Joe Joyce beat DuBois. Like, this was before I had my channel, but that fight was obviously rescheduled about 2 or 3 times, and every time I was picking Joyce to win just because DuBois, I'd never been impressed by. When people were saying, "Oh, he's great, he's this," I was thinking, he's good. He's good, like, very solid technique. He's quite consistent, but he moves like he's going through treacle a lot of the time. And there was, I don't know, just something a bit amateurish about him.
DuBois, when he turned over versus the Tauma who turned over, who have you been more impressed with?
Definitely a Tauma.
By a country mile.
I want to say, just to be fair, I want to say that the level of opposition that DuBois faced is marginally better, I feel. Marginally.
Yeah, that's a fair statement, to be fair.
Yeah. But in terms of, the eye test, it's Tauma every day.
Definitely. I don't know if you said, gun to your head, who would you pick between the two? Miller or DuBois?
Oh, man.
Let's say we get a clean Miller, and he's not the same Miller, but he's a fifth of himself. What do we think?
I got to go with Miller.
Same.
Because stylistically, I could understand how DuBois wins if, if he can keep it long. Kind of the similar kind of discussion we had when Miller was supposed to fight AJ. If AJ can keep it long, maybe keep moving, be a bit more mobile, use the long shots and keep Miller off, he should win. But how good is Miller's chin? Can he get close? And can he land a high volume of punches, which he's done on lesser opponents? I suspect that he probably can do that on DuBois. But in my mind, I'm just looking at the psychological dynamic. Because I think it's fair to say DuBois isn't the most mentally tough. I think he does lack a bit of resolve. And I just think, certain personalities, they might just be able to dog DuBois out. And I suspect that Miller is probably that kind of guy.
I think that is. I think it's a case of the bully versus, the victim to an extent. And I know you never look at DuBois and say, well, he kicked I get it, but the way you see someone like DuBois and someone like Miller, DuBois is just a quintessential target. If you were to take it and put them in the playground in the school or something like that, he'd be the quintessential target. And I could see just Miller, not even before punches, even before they get in the ring, just unraveling him just by being what he is, a loud mouth, overbearing, what.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's I know a lot of people say, "Oh, it doesn't always come down to psychology," but
it does actually a lot of the time.
I mean, a lot of it does. And I look back at that Usyk fight, and Usyk, obviously, there's quite a chasm between him and Miller in terms of levels, I feel. But DuBois could have gotten up. Absolutely could have gotten up against Usyk, but he didn't. And this is supposed to be a small man, a small cruiserweight who, is a great technician, but you've already shown that you can rough him up. And I 100% thought it was a low blow, but you have the tools there to at least see the fight out and maybe get a few more rounds. That could have been the difference. But, I said to Hatman shortly after that fight, the way, it's kind of ironic given what we're talking about now, the way Usyk took him out was like a school bully in a playground where he just walked up to a guy, banged him on the chin, and he submitted. Because that's all it was.
It reminded me, if you ever heard, obviously, like I'm not a great cook, but I like listening to Marco Pierre White, if you've ever heard of him.
Yeah.
And he made Gordon Ramsay cry when Gordon Ramsay was working under him. And he always said, I didn't make him cry. He made himself cry. He chose to cry. And with DuBois, it's like he chose to stay down. He chose not to get up. No one made him. It was his choice.
Yeah, exactly. Like he wasn't away with the fairies. He knew exactly what he was doing. And he said no mass. And, I'm not the kind of guy to like really come down hard on guys who quit. Like I understand when he quit against Joe Joyce, swollen eye, probably was a fractured orbital bone based on the way it looked.
You don't know what's going on in their head, like what they're feeling.
But with the Usyk fight, same thing. I'm not going to come down on him too hard, but it really was quite curious. Like the way he just unraveled in that fight.
It was like he hit the bully with his best shot. The bully came back, and it was like, well, what's the point now?
Yeah, kind of thing. Yeah.
In terms of the two men, because we went on that one for a while, didn't we? In terms of the two, there's so much that one to me is probably the most intriguing, just because of the it factors in it. Wilder versus Parker, a really, really good fight, a really good fight, a fight that we could have actually seen several years ago. Parker was actually at the Gerald Washington fight when he was champion. It's happening now. Robert Helenius last year, Parker this year, it's a chasm of a step up for Deontay Wilder, especially considering we really don't know where he's at post-Fury, because the Helenius fight told us nothing other than Deontay Wilder is the hardest puncher bar none in the heavyweight division. We know that. But it told us nothing else, really. I did find his demeanor at that press conference to be a bit strange. Like, he was stuttering his words a lot. And Wilder's never going to be the most articulate man in the world. We know that.
Never.
But he was stuttering more than usual. A guy who has been so vocal about Anthony Joshua, when he was finally in a room with him, he was just perfectly respectable and like, I respect you, whatever we do, whether we fight or not, I like you, I respect you, and stuttering quite a lot. For me, it was almost like, all right, what's going on here? Is he overawed by the occasion, which he shouldn't be? He's been big occasions. Is he shell shook? Is it? It was a very Wilder was strange at that press conference. Thoughts on that, and also thoughts on him and Parker. Wilder, both at their best, Wilder wins right now. Parker on the comeback. If the Parker against Jack Massey turns up against the Wilder from the third Fury fight, Wilder wins. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say first and foremost, I didn't see much of Wilder talking, although I did see his face off with Parker. And, sometimes the camera would pan over to him during the press conference. And I have to agree, I thought his demeanor was very subdued. Wilder's someone who I typically associate with being quite energetic and bombastic. But for him, this was very placid,
I wonder, is it he tried some of that stuff, what the stuff you get in the jungles after the third Fury fight, and we didn't really see much of a press conference for the Helenius one. This is the first real proper one we have. I wonder, is he still kind of have that in his mind? Because that's the only thing. I think he's not normally that subdued.
Yeah, Wilder's a strange guy. He's a very hot and cold character, similar to Fury in that sense. Only the thing is, Fury's a bit more cunning, whereas Wilder's a bit more
definitely not cunning. Yeah, yes, that is the perfect word you could use.
Simple, yeah. But that being said, I think Wilder's probably a bit more impressionable as well. Like, you see his reaction to certain things, like when he knocked out Helenius. He's I don't know, it's odd, but yeah, definitely that kind of piqued my interest today was seeing Wilder and his demeanor.
for such a guy who shouts bomb squad.
Yeah.
That was, and again, he's not someone who normally, that's some people were saying, is he punch drunk? No, he's not punch drunk. He just seemed to not be able to really, he's not the most articulate guy, but he just seemed to kind of have the words in his head, but just for whatever reason couldn't say them, couldn't, verbalize them.
Well, I think Wilder's someone who typically when he gives his best monologues, he's quite amped up.
That's when he normally says the best.
Exactly. And so maybe today just wasn't his moment. He's not the most articulate speaker at the best of times, but it's definitely interesting because, he would have been out of the ring for what?
Over a year, 14 months, yeah.
Yeah. It's actually something that I've spoken about in months gone by, because of course, when Joshua beat Helenius, I was one of the first to say quite openly, I don't think that's good enough. And then a lot of people kind of rebutted to me and said, well, you don't know, Wilder's been inactive. How do you know he's going to be any good? But talking about Wilder's personality, he strikes me as the kind of person who, because he's simple, he doesn't think very much, unlike AJ. And therefore, it doesn't take much for Wilder to kind of get himself into gear and think, you know what, I've still got it. Whereas AJ's the kind of guy to think, oh, I don't know, or I need a bit more, or he was brought into, like, AJ's a bit more cognizant. In that
Wilder
regard.
to this day still thinks Fury cheated. So as far as he's concerned, I didn't do anything wrong. My shin is fine. Everything about me is fine. He cheated. Whereas Joshua was like, oh, I've been hurt a few times, and then if this, what if he does this, what if he does this, what if blah, 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 blah. And then before you know it, he doesn't know what to do. Whereas with Wilder, it's just, he cheated. I didn't do anything wrong. So just do what I did before.
Yeah, and like both approaches have their pluses and their minuses. But in terms of rehabilitation, if you're talking about who's going to rehab their battle wounds quicker, my money's on Wilder, just because he's not going to think about it that much.
No, not much would be really going on up there in that regard.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of the fight, Parker Wilder, it's taken nearly 40. This is crazy how good this card is. It's taken nearly 40 minutes just to preview this card, right? Yeah. We're not even finished yet. We're not even finished it yet, right? But in terms of honestly what your thoughts are, Parker Wilder, who is your money on? If I gave you a $5 now and I said, right, I know me and you are not particularly betting men, but if I said, here's a $5, put it on a bet, who would you bet on? And what bet right now?
I would bet on Wilder.
Knockout?
For a number of reasons. Probably a knockout, yeah. Although I would envisage Parker being able to hang tough.
No.
I think, see, with Wilder, as we say, like, he's probably still got a serviceable amount of confidence left, given his last few fights, particularly the ones against Fury. Stylistically, I think it's a very interesting matchup because Wilder, he's that kind of, fastball pitcher. He's one-handed, but that one hand is it's a real kicker. Like kicks like a mule. But Parker does have the tools, I think, to frustrate Wilder. He moves quite well. Parker's a frustrating fighter, in my opinion.
I think it depends how light he is, though.
Yeah, that's obviously a key because Parker seems to have fallen into this trap of, I'm a big
250 again. Do you know what I think as well, right? That Simon Keane performance, that could be a curse for him. I'll tell you why. He looked good against the limited heavyweight. He was 250 pounds. And I've always said Parker is a 230 type heavyweight. You'll get him at the best when he's hitting fine. He's fast of everything at that weight. He's going to look at that and think 250 did all this. What might 255 do? Because a lot of heavyweights tend to think like that. And you're like, it doesn't flipping work like that.
No, because like Parker's a very naturally athletic, very explosive guy anyway. But
you look at him, and I think it was 2015. He got a first-round knockout where he knocked the guy Spark out. I forget who it was, right? But you look at how much lean. Now he still had a bit of flesh there, but he was so much smaller and leaner. And I used to look at it and think he's moving so well, he's so fast, and he lands those punches quick and explosive. He doesn't look like that. Even when he's 10 pounds heavier, much less 20 pounds heavier, he doesn't look even a fifth of that, a third of it. And you're like, why can't you? How come I can look at that and you can't look and say, I was so good back then? What's different? 20 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes like we have to remember that fighters don't always know what's best.
No.
And I know that sounds crazy because like, I'm just a scrub on YouTube and like that's it. But a top level fighter is a top level fighter, you know, for a number of reasons, but that doesn't always mean that they, you know everything, for lack of a better term. And sometimes they fall into the trap, particularly the heavyweights of, you know, usually when they're Parker's dimensions, you know, like they're below that kind of 6'5" threshold, you know, they're on the smaller
speed is
side.
their advantage.
Exactly. And so
throw it away.
Don't trade power with power. You know, use your speed, use your natural advantages. And Parker for a long time had a lot of natural advantages.
Oh yeah. Well, do you remember when he was mandatory for the IBF with AJ? And at that time, he was the lighter Parker. He was the mover Parker. People had that fight really as 50-50 at the time because they thought Parker's speed and, you know, his movement could cause AJ fits. By the time they did fight, he wasn't that fast Parker anymore. Yeah, the hand speed was still there, but he was heavier in terms of everything else.
Yeah.
And his style had changed a little bit to an extent where he was more kind of like boxing rather than just being explosive.
He was quite negative. But that's the thing. It's like a negative heavyweight. You usually assume that. I mean, well, to be fair, like Parker moves quite well, despite the fact that he's not a small heavyweight. He's just a smaller heavyweight. But one thing with Parker for me, you know, despite his athleticism, despite as well, like even though Parker doesn't have the most fire for battle, he's not a nervous guy. He's not an anxious guy. Like I've always been quite impressed with the way he's composed himself in the lead up to a fight. You know, he's been willing to go to Principality Stadium and fight AJ, O2 to fight Dylan White, and he never looks nervous. The only thing is he can switch off in a fight. Is what I feel.
He's lost to people like Dylan White and almost looked happy with the loss. You know, like
that's it.
Like I never forget that interview post Dylan fight where he's in the ring and the big smile. He's like, "Wow, what an occasion!" And it's like you just lost a fight that you should have won. You should be raging. Almost did win. You should be snapping. You should be like the F. If only I'd had this, or if the referee. He's like, "What an occasion! I'm so happy." It's like, what? The hell?
That's it. It's a bit too much. There's not enough grit there.
No,
but he's not a nervous guy, and it was always really strange. It's like he's not someone who gets overruled by the occasion at all. No. Not from what I could see. But he just didn't have the fire to keep up.
No.
But that aside, I've always found it really frustrating the way that Joseph Parker, in a lot of his performances, he falls into the same routine. He's not the most cerebral fighter, despite the fact that he's very physically capable.
No, he isn't. He tends to kind of...
so frustrating.
It's the same old. It's just 1-2, whatever. Move on. It's
So many times, particularly against big fighters, we've seen him kind of just trying to launch this big right hand over the top, and he'll miss and miss and miss, and there's just no IQ,
no setup, no anything. There's no, this isn't working. Let's try this.
Exactly. It's just not there.
That's it. That's why I think Deontay Wilder's going to win. I think he's going to knock Joseph Parker out. I really, truly do. Now, Anthony Joshua, Otto Wallin. Not just even the fact that this fight is happening. Joshua, only a few weeks ago, uploaded a picture of himself with Derek James getting ready to start camp. And now he is going to be trained in this fight by Ben Davison, which came... I don't want to say I was surprised in one sense because he was working behind the scenes with Ben Davison, but I am in another because I thought him and James had a good relationship going into a fight. And Wallin is a step up, a big step up from the Helleniuses and the Franklins of the world. 5 weeks and, you know, a lot on the line, not in terms of a title, but a lot at stake on a big show like this. I'm scratching my head at that. And I said that once and I'll say it again. The last 2 times this has happened where Joshua has been fighting closer on the same card, in this case as his opponent, who he may be fighting later on, he's come up short and lost.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking this has, I'm not saying it will, but it has the makings of an upset.
Yeah. Straight up, if Wallin won, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
No.
At all.
Not even remotely. I won't pick him because I just think that he is, again, a good show against Tyson Fury. But, you know, he's done zilch since then. And, you know, against Gassiev, not to take away from the win, but I thought Gassiev looked terrible in there rather than Wallin looking amazing.
Yeah.
That's fair to say. He will be better in this fight, that of which I've no doubt. It's good in one sense that it's a reasonably quick turnaround from the last fight, so he's probably not really been, you know, out of the gym that long. I think Joshua will still win, but I expect, he keeps saying he's going to look devastating, this, that, and the other, but he said that in his last 2 fights. We ain't seen it yet.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the Ben Davison as well? All into one.
All into one. Okay. So the fight itself, I'm very interested in. I know it's not Wilder, okay, but to be fair, I think it's a decent consolation prize because there's quite a bit of intrigue from a stylistic perspective, a psychological perspective, and now this curveball from a training perspective. And that's what we want. We want fights of intrigue. You know, Wallin is a very confident character. He is, you know, still riding the crest of that wave from way back in 2019 when he cut Tyson Fury.
4 years.
Yeah, 4 years. But it's still going on.
If you win the World Cup 4 years ago, you can ride that wave. If you came second, or even not even if you came second, if you came third place, we forgot long about that. Yeah.
But that being said, he is a good, capable, tricky fighter, you know. He's an interesting addition. He's a big, tall southpaw. He's got a good amount of pedigree as well. And with that confidence, that can pose a lot of problems for AJ.
Can he hurt AJ? He buzzed Gassiev, who never really showed a bad chin. Do you think he has do you think you would underestimate his power at your peril?
Yeah, definitely. I think just by virtue of his size and the fact that, you know, he's not slow heavyweight and he's got some decent technique as well. So if he catches you clean, I'd be very shocked if he was able to take AJ out dramatically. But if he was buzzing AJ with a couple of shots here and there, I think, you know what, that's to be expected.
Wallin is, and I've said this before about Otto Wallin, and I've said that there are these types of punchers. You have the heavy-handed Triple G punchers. You have the Deontay Wilder single shot explosive.
Yeah.
I would put, going way back, the Gene Tunnies of the world. They were, I call them the slashing punchers, where they're neither really explosive, bang, see you later. They're not really, you know, every shot is heavy, but they'll cut you up. Because Wallin has won a lot of fights, even before Tyson Fury. He's won, I think, 3 or 4 fights on cuts. So he is someone who he can land, he can you up, slash you. Joshua, although he's never, that I remember being cut, he does swell.
Yeah, and his nose.
That seems to
these days. I think
ever since the Takam fight.
It's not been the same.
Whatever, it was a headbutt, wasn't it, that caused it?
Yeah, and it was a bad headbutt as well. You know, Takam got a massive skull, just crunched him right in his nose.
Yeah, I'd say whatever he did, that's never been fully right.
Yeah, and that's what happens. Like, people can't underestimate how, like, the residual effects of boxing. And it's, you know, to go off on a tangent, people think that Tyson Fury is just going to be able to get through boxing unscathed. He's already had to take a hell of a lot of punishment. And that adds up. And I know going from a little bit of a tangent with Fury, but that's the nature of boxing, folks. These guys who can get through boxing with not very much damage accumulated, they're rare. They are super rare. The only person I can really think of at the top of my head is probably Triple G. Never really known him to have many injuries at all.
No,
But
even
he is
Floyd
real.
has brittle hands.
Huh?
Even Floyd in his hands.
Oh yeah, exactly. But then,
So like, yeah, he has damage, not head damage, but he does his body. His
yeah,
hands, I'm sure, don't
exactly.
feel the nicest.
There's some kind of wear and tear somewhere. And as I say, Triple G, who's widely regarded as being one of the toughest guys in boxing in recent years, he's the only real example I can think of.
Maybe George Foreman.
Oh yeah, of course, Big George.
But he's just George Foreman is a different human being altogether, because he is just made of something else.
Yeah,
I mean, that guy is just
Some guys are just made of a strange material. It's not human, but they're very rare. That's the point.
My friend, just to interject here, my friend a couple of years ago went to the Emirates, North London, for an evening with Foreman, and he said that he would struggle, a normal British house, walking in the front door, he said he would struggle to walk in it normally, if you know what I mean. He'd have to kind of tilt. That's how wide he is. And he said Johnny Nelson was there, who was a big lump of a man, and he made Nelson look like, imagine a flyweight standing next to a heavyweight. That's kind of how it would have looked.
Yeah.
That guy is made of something else.
Yeah, and it showed. Definitely.
It did. But that is kind of going back into this fight. Joshua, as I said at that press conference, when Miller really put it on him, he just seemed a bit away at that point.
Yeah.
He's now changed trainers again, from a trainer who I thought he was working very well with. I really did. To Ben Davison. And for me, kind of my logic is that is he looking at Davison thinking, you train Fury to be out of a lane, you're going to do the same for me, when if that was always the way it's going to be, then every fighter would be, if Manny Stewart was alive, well, you trained, Holyfield to beat, imagine someone in the 90s, going, you trained Holyfield to beat Riddick Bowe. I'm fighting Andrew Galata doing that. Like, I'm going to go Manny Stewart for this fight because he did it, so I'm going to do it. That might not be the case, but I'm struggling to get my head around this move.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like, I find this one to be a real kind of head scratcher. It's random, and it's also it's trying to understand why. What does Ben Davison offer now? I think Ben Davison's a good coach, but
he definitely is. Yeah,
you're still in the formative stages of your partnership with Derek James, and I criticised Joshua's performance against Helenius. I actually thought he performed better against Franklin than he did against Helenius. I wasn't too dissatisfied with AJ's performance against Franklin because it was his first fight back, and I thought, I rated Franklin somewhat highly. I thought he was a better fighter than advertised, or that people gave him credit for. And I saw it as a bit of a workmanlike performance from Joshua. The Helenius fight was worse, but that was a trickier fight in the sense where it was a late replacement,
big puncher,
completely different dimensions to what he prepared for, and obviously, I want to say that Helenius is probably a more dangerous fighter than Franklin. I think that we could all agree on that.
We can all agree.
So those factors all played into it. But that being said, I was still interested to see where Derek James was going to take him, because Derek James, I think, is a good trainer, and he has like a certain demeanor that AJ would have benefited from.
Derek James, as you said there, is a good trainer. And I agree, he is a good trainer. And I think that I was liking what I was seeing. Joshua seemed happy with him. They seemed to have a good, almost like a father-son relationship at points when you'd see them.
Yeah.
And I just, with Ben Davison, how in-depth did Ben Davison ever really get with Joshua? If you think about it, if it was just taking over, did he ever really, go have I'm going to break you down and do this or do that? I would envision not. How much is he going to get from him in 5 weeks? Because that's roughly how long it is, 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And, I can't grasp Joshua's mindset with this. I really can't. Derek James was trainer of the year last year. Okay. In the space of a year, a couple of his fighters lose. Fair enough. They lose. It happens. Right. And now he's a horrible trainer. What?
Yeah, that doesn't
I
make
wonder
sense.
it doesn't make sense at all because, look at fighters Emmanuel Stewart trained, and none of them, like Darrell Williams, I think his name is, the guy who fought Shannon Briggs, he never won a world title. Does that mean that, what?
Manny
Emmanuel
Stewart's
Stewart,
no
because
good.
he lost a couple of times, he's no good? No, trainers are obviously going to lose. It's weird. Like, we're moving away from the stigma of a fighter taking an L and being a bad fighter. Now it's a case of a trainer. It's his fault. No, it's not. And that's even worse because you can have the best trainer of all time. He's going to have loads of fighters take L's, loads of them. And I'm wondering if Joshua's listened too much to that and thought, oh yeah, maybe I do need to leave.
See, my first instinct is probably that's not the case. I'm just guessing. Obviously, I'm not in Joshua's head. I'm not behind the scenes. What I suspect it might be is that Joshua is an overthinker by his own admission. He's the kind of guy who is subject to paralysis by analysis. And that works for and against him because he's the kind of guy who's absolutely meticulous in trying to improve. In any way, shape, or form. If he deems something as potentially being beneficial to him, even if it's by the slightest margin, he'll try and take that on board and absorb it. And that's good because that's going to mean he's always developing. However, it's bad because there's never a point where he's just like, you know what? Too many cooks spoil the broth. He's the kind of guy who, if you're a trainer like Ben Davison and you've maybe brought up something that AJ's never considered, he's probably going to think, damn, I'm missing out. I need this guy in my camp. I need that guy in my camp. That's what I suspect is. I think it's AJ's just overly spongy nature taking over a bit.
You think that's going to be the undoing of him? Maybe not in this fight, but eventually.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, we've seen it in the Hellenius fight. I think it was really a lot of the problems for Joshua came down because he was just paralyzed. He was thinking too much. He needs to learn how to be in the moment. And, just to go off on a little bit of a tangent, I feel like that's who AJ is because I kind of see a bit of myself in that. Like, I feel I have that kind of nature. Without getting too personal, I'm the kind of person where I'm always trying to optimize. And that might be, oh, that's great. You're always trying to do things the best way you can. But sometimes I'm trying so hard to optimize that I don't even get started. And so there's that fear of missing out. How can I go into this fight when I don't have this guy in my camp or I don't have this guy's advice? As a fighter, you need to just trust your instinct, trust what you have around you. And ultimately, it's 5 weeks until fight night. And that's going to be 4 weeks of solid, dedicated training for an opponent, give or take a couple of weeks. That's not a long time at all. And so that's far from optimal. And then you start to see how this optimization mindset is problematic.
I just thought of something there when you said that. Do you think as well, maybe he looked at Chris Eubank Jr., quick training camp with Bomac? Look what Eubank did, because they're good friends, Joshua and Eubank.
Yeah.
And maybe because again, when it comes to these things, and if it's Joshua, I'm like, it wouldn't surprise me if he did think something like that. It'll work for him, it's going to work for me.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know what goes on through fighters' minds. Like, once again, they don't necessarily know what's best.
No.
Sometimes you have to kind of be a bit hard-headed and kind of switch your brain off a little bit and just be like, you know what, I'm just going to double down and I'm going to get through this. And I say that I'm someone, I love the cerebral side of boxing and all that stuff. But sometimes, speaking of Chris Eubank Jr., he had Bomac in his corner, but that was reminiscent of the old Chris Eubank Jr. in many ways. So how much new influence was there really? I don't think there was all that much.
I think it was maybe just reminding them what you used to be, and that's what you need to be. Don't try and be something you're not, which you've been trying to do the past 3 years. It bit him in the ass spectacularly. Just to read out what JD said, thank you for the £5. I appreciate that, mate. Maybe it was because of Miller's presence, but to me, AJ's demeanor today gave off a level of anger. I think AJ may go through the gears against Oliver Leon. He definitely seemed that. I know he does not like Jarrell Miller in the slightest. And that definitely shone through in the press conference. I did think that myself, to be fair, mate, that would, because Miller is going to be there on fight night. He's fighting on the card. Joshua, if he fights angry and fights with a real bee in his bonnet, That actually probably could be something he maybe needs. Maybe having someone there. He's not fighting Miller, but someone who he despises, just thinking, "Oh, I just want to f this guy up because you pissed me off."
Yeah, he'll have to be careful though, because I don't think Wallin's the kind of guy that he can just trudge forward and try and close down out of anger. That would go badly wrong, I feel.
That will go pear-shaped real quick. Real quick. Wow, that was fun. That's the card in a nutshell. Now, I don't imagine we're going to get any word on... I don't think there's going to be anything added to the undercard. By the way, 172 in the building. I've only got 67 likes. What's up with that? Smash the like button. Yeah, honestly, smash the like button. We need 100 likes in this chat.
It doesn't cost you anything.
It don't cost a penny. It doesn't cost a penny to subscribe to Outmatch Boxing either. I'm just saying, man, you got 2,000 subs, but we want to get you more than 2,000, you know? Let's see. We are all going to milk the you-know-what out of this next few weeks, because I think it's going to be a very interesting couple of weeks. Christmas time, Christmas week for YouTube, boxing YouTube, is normally quite dead. I haven't uploaded this video yet, but I was saying in my preview of this card, I'll be uploading review of the week on Christmas Day, because the Saturday will have been this fight card. I'll be recording a Christmas Eve to upload a Christmas morning, which is something I definitely didn't think I'd be doing at the start of the year if you told me that. It's adding something to our Christmas. We have a lot to look forward to.
Definitely, yeah. And, it could be a better card, but it's pretty damn good as it is. And
it's, as I said at the start, DuBois Miller is a standalone main event.
Yeah, I agree.
Easy. And it's not even going to be co-main.
That says a lot. That says a hell of a lot.
That says a hell of a lot. Mate, we've just gone over the hour mark, right? So I've been enjoying this, but we got to call it here. I like to keep the hour, as you know. We keep the hour. I want to let you finish with the closing thoughts. Your thoughts on this card. Are you looking forward to it? And one last time for the 170 plus in the chat, please plug your channel. The floor is on to you, mate.
All right. So, as I said, this card could be better, without doubt. However, it's pretty damn good for what we're getting. There are a whole bunch of names. There's some very genuinely interesting fights. And it just could be a whole lot worse. And, as you said, G, in the lead up to Christmas, we don't usually get all that much. But this is the kind of card where I'm happy to pay for it, and I'm happy to sit all the way through it. No breaks, no fights that go off and have a bite to eat or anything like that. This is the kind of thing that
we know those ones.
Yeah, you know what kind of fights I'm talking about. So yeah, I think this is a great card, and I'm very much looking forward to it. And on the plus side as well, 5 weeks away. This isn't next year. This is 5 weeks' time. It'll be here before you know it.
No, not like we're saying, all right, grand, February the 17th, we're waiting until then. No, we're waiting 5 weeks away. Well, exactly. It shows us boxing fans what we are. Everyone is going to be said, you have your Christmas decoration, Christmas, this. You looking forward to Christmas? I'm looking forward to this card.
Yeah.
And then Christmas.
Oh, mate. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. And do plenty of videos on it on my channel.
We will definitely be doing a live watch along and paying. Don't mention the war, what network it's going to be on. You could open up a can of worms there, but because they haven't announced it yet. But whatever one it's on, they're getting my money. Take it.
Yeah, same here. Without doubt. Sign me up.
100%. And closing thoughts, not really thoughts, but closing outro, Outmatch Boxing, floor's on you. Plug the channel. Where do we find you at?
Outmatch Boxing on YouTube. You see the little icon on screen now. That is my that's my ID right there. Bit of a sandbox channel. There's something for everyone. I just do videos. I give my opinion, nothing more, nothing less. It's just what I see, an unbiased take. But I try and present some different sides to the equation. Obviously talking about boxing and previews, predictions, breakdowns and reviews, but also talking about psychological aspects of like what we've done here, stylistic matchups, tactics, technique, and even some kind of miscellaneous topics like strength and conditioning, stuff like that. So I'm sure that there's something that everyone can enjoy. So head over there, subscribe, and watch the videos.
Yeah. We got, what would you say? We got 2 of the 5 Boxing Brotherhood members. So who knows? Maybe before the end of the year, we can get all 5 on.
Hopefully.
That would be something, wouldn't it? That would be something.
A Boxing Brotherhood review of the card. That would be special.
Imagine a Boxing Brotherhood watch along.
Oh, boy.
We all have it linked in. Me, you, Henry, Chris, and Hatman. It'd be unreal.
That would.
Because we'd all be tuning in.
Yeah, and we'd have to make that pay-per-view ourselves.
Yeah, we would have to. Everyone's channel, we do the membership and we watch it exclusive, members only, because that would be something else. You get the Boxing Brotherhood commentary.
In the works, mate. It's in the works.
In the works, man. In the works. Mate, we'll chat a little bit backstage. I'll fill you in on a few bits, but for now, we'll all leave you with that. Lads, this is flown in. Honestly, this is the quickest hour ever. It's like a lunch break in work. It's flown in so quick. I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there, right? Please smash the like button on the way in or on the way out. Go over to Outmatch and we'll talk to you. Peace.
See you.